I'm more gravity. Let's play chess. I finished this game of chess about 5 minutes ago. I'm really excited to present it to you uh, here today. I had the white pieces, and here we go. Make one change to the engine settings. That's fine. Move this up just to 4 lines because I like to see a breadth of analysis when I'm reviewing. That's just personal preference. Okay, Sicilian defense, e4, c5. I play the Alapin sometimes, including this game. This is the Alapin defense. It's not a goof. I didn't, fail to reach the c4 square. This is called either the c3 Sicilian or the Alapin Sicilian. This is the definitive position. So for the rest of the game, it's the Alapin Sicilian. My opponent prepares to Fiend Shadow. It's a good way to combat. Is one of the strongest ways to play against the Alapin. Getting back to the Alapin, the point is, White wants a central pawn duo. Okay, so at some point I'm going to push d4 with a trade of c5. Black was looking to at c5, looking to get a better center, and the Alpin Sicilian challenges that directly with the move c3 at the cost of a full move, at a cost of White's earliest moves, second earliest move. So after White pushes d4, then usually c takes d4 and c takes d4, and White has some sort of pawn center, and Black will have strengths as well. Okay, so that's that. I played d4, and my opponent played queen to b6, sort of undermining the idea of the Alapin. I like to see this move. It's not exactly the right move because White can play, for instance, queen b3 is strong, captures, and then after Black recaptures, bishop e3 is developing with tempo. So it's not precise, but it's the right idea here by Black to challenge White's pawn center in some sort of scheme of capturing in the center from, in this case, the wing, and then perhaps also the other wing with a move like bishop g7. I captured into this thinking that bishop e3 might go well here, and then I changed my thoughts to play instead queen to d4, threatening the rook. Right, so the recapture is all but required. I mean, e5 could happen, but queen takes d4. There's going to be a trade of queens, and I'm going to have that central pawn duo in a queenless game with equal material. As far as finding enough strength out of the opening for White, I'm fine with that. Bishop g7, right, completing the idea, attacking the loose pawn. So knight f3 developing and protecting. Pawn to d6 is fine. There's nothing wrong with pawn to d6. It's got to happen at some point for this bishop to become powerful. Perhaps instead pawn to b6 and then bishop to b7. I don't know. They're both good. Developing bishop to g4 is the most active square for the bishop. You might think about bishop d7 in a more passive way, and then I think White gets some sort of momentum with bishop b5, and then possibly trading bishops, or if Black wants to block, then maybe the knight is coming into d5, and there are even threats of knight to c7 check, and winning either the exchange on a8 or a full rook on a8. All right, here's an idea. Knight to d5. It's a good move. And the idea is we use the vulnerability of Black against this fork here sort of to centralize a knight. What do I want to say? We're using this tactical issue for black to have to deal with to gain a bit of a strategic advantage in having an outpost on d5. Yes, I know e6 could occur and the knight would have to go somewhere else. But once e6 occurs, then don't we have a pretty good chance at making something out of harassing black's light squared bishop on the light squares here, where he can't retreat all that well due to the presence of his own pawns, right? So this is sort of like this. This on the king side is more of a strategic idea. Knight to d5, potentially followed up by knight to c7 check, is like just a standard. Sometimes it's called in chess a shot or a hit. It's just a standard shot, and sometimes we make them in blitz also to see what comes out of it, what pops up out of that. Black might miss the best defense and stuff like that. Found it with king to d7. I still have a strong knight as a result of move number 9, knight to d5. So thinking with material even here, white has a bit of a strategic or positional advantage, and not huge, just a slight positional advantage, and the computer agrees with me. So we'll go through in terms of space. White has better space, right? Like that. Materials even. Mobility is favoring white with more active pieces involved. The clock is almost exactly even. And the initiative, well, in this position it's white to move, and I think that's enough to say white has a small advantage in the initiative. White has, or it's better said, white has an advantage in the initiative, and I'd say it's a weak advantage in the initiative. There's no immediate way for white to exploit. There's no immediate way for white to exploit his advantage in the initiative. So, bishop b5 check, blocking on c6. Without anything concrete here, I'm looking at ideas like getting the dark squared bishop developed, and then maybe adding pressure to the knight at c6, for instance by rook c1. Before that, I'm threatening to win material on h8 with the move knight to g5. And here's the, so after bishop e3, I'm just solidifying this pawn a little bit. And we notice, look at the board, how aggressive white's pieces are placed. 3 pieces in black's territory. Excuse me. White has 3 pieces on the opponent's side of the board. Control of the center, and strongly so, with the pawn duo on d4 and e4. The bishop on e3 is helping to solidify things. This calls for an attack. White should attack. And after a6, the attack comes, letting the bishop, letting the bishop hang, at least for the moment, because black doesn't have any good options to deal with the check without losing at least the exchange on a8. And the best move to c7 is actually losing the exchange in a way that he can't make use of this attack on white's bishop at b5. Black is in check after the capture, so captures with the rook on a8 is correct for black. Rook takes a8. And bishop at b5 takes the knight. That's just a matter of style, really. Yeah, this is just reducing the amount of material on the board. The material's won already here by white. White is up the exchange. And if we capture on c6, then those 2 points of material loom larger. This is somewhat, but these are mostly, so through these moves, 18 through 20 or 21, fairly complicated tactics and combinations. I don't wish to go over them in detail. You can study them on your own if you wish. So one thing I talked about yesterday was having a plan to win. Once you're winning, how are you going to make that win occur? There are some moves here. This is a mess. In this position, mostly white should be thinking more about checkmate than I was during the game. My idea was still to grind things down to a better endgame. But yeah, I agree with, I mean, it's not just agreeing, it's the fact that white has a mate in 7. So white should be thinking more directly about checkmating black's king than anything else. With this discovered attack looming, I thought I could pick up an extra piece on b8. There's a discovered attack against black's king that is looming. He can't shake out of it because he's stuck where he is. Yet the king has no possible moves. And rook to b7 doesn't lose the day. It's just not as precise. Grab the rook, and we're still rolling here with plenty of firepower to force a win by simplification. This is a clearly one pawn game. So I'm not going to go over this. But let's go back to the mistake I made. Rook b7. Alright, so instead of rook b7, we're here as white to move. What you want to think about here, and I know this is mostly for our beginners and novices, what we want to think about here as black is, or what do we want to think a bit about here as white? Checkmate more than picking up material. One move of interest would be there's a mate in 8 here. I guess I gotta kind of admit that mate in 8 is a little bit beyond my normal depth of calculation. I'm wondering what would happen, for instance, if white played rook g7. Okay, I don't know. Some of these missed wins will become a win later based on simplifying and so on. Aha. Rook takes d6 check. Now, after rook to g6, and then rook to g8 check. There's a couple opportunities from here to be precise. You could play for the mate directly. I'm thinking anywhere where maybe that wasn't quite as good as it could have been. Okay, so that is on this side of things. We go here and then checkmate. Oh, first let's. Oh, there's a lot of ways to win, just not all of them in the number of moves. Okay, well, this is okay. This will be one way to clean this up for the checkmate. Sorry about that, folks. And we have the way it occurred in the game, like I showed earlier, I just sort of picked up so much material that I wasn't worried about anything other than reducing and promoting. This is what I want you to do. Here's where I want to show you. King to e2, just to harass the knight a little, get more active as my king into the game. But then after bishop to f4, it's counterintuitive, because why would you even, normally when we think of a sacrifice, we think we're on a checkmate as a result of that sacrifice, or we think we're going to pick up a lot of material as a result of that sacrifice. Rook takes d6 check, does neither, but it's a simplification. I lose the rook in exchange for the pawn that was there and the knight on e3, and so I just lost material, right? But no, because the simplification here is winning the entire game. That's it. That's all I wanted to. That's it. That's my lesson for the day, or my game review for the day. Thank you so much for watching. I'm More Gravity. Have a great night.